Sometimes, the person who holds the door open for you is the very same person who locks you out in the freezing rain. I am Kim. I am 28 years old. And for a long time, I believed that love was a shield strong enough to keep out any storm. But shields only work when you are facing the enemy, not when the person holding the blade is standing right behind you, whispering that everything is going to be okay. When the camera lens clicked on, and that red recording light began to blink under the heavy studio rafters, I wasn't thinking about fame or money. I was thinking about the empty drawer in our master bedroom, the smell of lavender laundry detergent that suddenly felt like a mockery, and the two tiny, breathing miracles sleeping in the double stroller just off camera. I knew that somewhere, in a pristine living room 30 miles away, a television screen would flicker to life, and the man who had erased us from his life would finally have to look at what he left behind. Before the silence of that television studio, there was the noise of a very happy, very ordinary life. My husband, Sam, and I had been married for 4 years. We lived in a modest, sun-washed two-bedroom apartment that always smelled faintly of vanilla candles and baby powder. Our lives were small, predictable, and deeply beautiful. When we found out we were expecting twins, Sam had wept tears of pure terror and joy into my hair, his hands trembling against my lower back. He was a good man, or at least he was a man who tried very hard to be good. He worked long hours at a local logistics firm, his fingers often stained with black ink from manifest sheets, while I managed a small online boutique from our kitchen table, surrounded by fabric swatches and shipping boxes. We had a routine that anchored us. Every morning, Sam would wake up at 5, kiss my forehead, and whisper, "I'm building our kingdom, Kim." Every evening, he would come home, kick off his boots by the door with a familiar, heavy thud, and immediately take one twin in each arm. Our beautiful, dark-eyed boy and girl, Leo and Maya. We didn't have much extra money, but we had a porch where we drank chamomile tea after the babies went to sleep. Watching the streetlights hum to life felt like a fortress. But every fortress has a weak point, and ours was named Evelyn. Evelyn was Sam's mother. She was a woman of immaculate posture and chillingly soft speech. She never raised her voice. Instead, she lowered it, forcing you to lean in to hear the sharp edges of her judgments. From the day Sam introduced us, Evelyn treated me like a temporary tenant in her son's heart. When we got married in a simple backyard ceremony, she wore black, smoothing down her silk skirt while remarking that it was such a sensible, economical choice for a girl of your background. When the twins were born, she didn't hold them. She stood at the foot of my hospital bed, adjusting her designer leather handbag on her forearm, and whispered, "Two at once. How expensive. I hope Sam's salary can support your family, Kim, since your little internet hobby won't pay for private schooling." Sam always tried to play the peacemaker. He would catch my hand under the dinner table, his thumb rubbing circles into my knuckles, and say, "She's just lonely, Kim. Since Dad died, she only has me. She doesn't mean it the way it sounds." And because I loved him, because I wanted our home to be a sanctuary of peace, I swallowed the bitter taste of her remarks. I invited her over for Sunday dinners. I made sure the twins wore the expensive, stiff linen outfits she bought them, even though the fabric made their tender skin break out in red rashes. I thought that if I showed her enough grace, her coldness would eventually melt. The first shift in the wind happened on a Tuesday in late October. The twins were 7 months old, just beginning to sit up on their own on the living room rug. Sam came home later than usual. The thud of his boots by the door didn't happen. Instead, he slipped them off quietly, almost secretively. When he walked into the kitchen, he didn't reach for the babies. He stood by the counter, staring into a mug of black coffee, as if trying to read fortunes in the dark liquid. "Everything okay at work, Sam?" I asked, wiping a smudge of sweet potato puree from Maya's chin. "Yeah," he murmured, not looking up. His voice lacked its usual warmth. It sounded thin, stretched out like an old rubber band. "Just a lot of restructuring happening. Mom stopped by the office today." I paused, the baby spoon hovering in the air. "Evelyn went to your office? Is she okay?" "She's fine," he said, finally looking at me. But his eyes shifted to the window behind me, avoiding my gaze. She's just worried about our future. She thinks I'm burning myself out. She brought me some paperwork for a financial management seminar she wants me to attend next month out of town. She thinks it'll help me get a promotion. A small, uneasy knot formed in my stomach. Evelyn had never cared about Sam's career path before, only his proximity to her. An out-of-town seminar? For how long? Just a few days, he said quickly, too quickly. He reached down to pick up Leo, but his movements were stiff, like a man performing a script he hadn't fully memorized. It's a good opportunity, Kim. We need the money. With the twins growing, things are only going to get tighter. Over the next 2 weeks, the man I knew began to recede, replaced by a ghost who shared his face. Sam became hypervigilant about his phone. He no longer left it face up on the coffee table. It was either deep in his pocket or face down, the screen dark and forbidding. One night, around 2 in the morning, I woke up to the soft, rhythmic blue glow of a screen illuminating the ceiling. Sam was sitting on the edge of the bed, his back to me, typing furiously. "Sam," I whispered, my voice thick with sleep. "What's wrong? Is it the logistics reports?" He flinched, his shoulders tensing instantly. He shoved the phone under his pillow and lay down, keeping his back turned toward me. "Nothing, Kim. Just checking the morning delivery schedules. Go back to sleep." But sleep didn't come back to me that night. I lay there in the dark, listening to the synchronized, gentle breathing of my twins in their cribs across the room, and the heavy, irregular breathing of my husband beside me. The air in our bedroom suddenly felt thick, heavy with things left unsaid. A few days later, I found the first tangible piece of the puzzle. I was doing the laundry, shaking out Sam's khaki work trousers before tossing them into the washing machine. A small, folded piece of thick, cream-colored paper fell out of the coin pocket. It wasn't a receipt from his logistics firm. It was a high-end travel agency itinerary. I unfolded it with trembling fingers. It wasn't for a financial seminar. It was a one-way first-class flight ticket to London, booked in Sam's name for November 14th, exactly 1 week away. And printed at the bottom of the page, under the billing information, were the words, "Paid in full by Evelyn Vance." My breath caught in my throat. The room seemed to tilt slightly, the smell of the lavender detergent suddenly making me violently nauseous. A one-way ticket, no return date, no mention of a wife, no mention of 2 7-month-old babies. I stood there in the quiet laundry room, the paper crinkling in my fist, listening to the dull roar of the water filling the washing machine. I looked at the calendar on the wall. November 14th was next Thursday, the very day Sam said he was leaving for his 3-day conference. The mind plays cruel tricks on you when your world begins to fracture. For the first 24 hours, I tried to build a prison of logic to keep the panic away. "It's a surprise trip," I told myself as I folded the twins' tiny onesies. "He's planning a vacation for us, and Evelyn just paid for his portion as a gift." But the word printed in stark, cold ink on that cream-colored paper refused to change. One way. You do not buy a one-way ticket across the Atlantic for a family vacation when your wife and 7-month-old infants are left behind in a rented apartment. I chose not to scream. I chose not to confront him that night when he came home, though every nerve in my body was screaming for a fight. Instead, I watched him. I watched the way he wouldn't look our children in the eye when he held them. He didn't sing the little nonsense lullabies he had invented for them anymore. He held them like they were fragile glass ornaments he was terrified of breaking or dropping. The truth, raw and ugly, revealed itself 3 days before his scheduled departure. It was a cold Friday afternoon. Sam was at work, and I had taken the twins to the pediatrician for their routine checkup. We returned earlier than expected because the clinic was running ahead of schedule. As I pushed the double stroller down our quiet apartment hallway, I noticed the front door was slightly ajar. A sliver of warm yellow light cut through the dim corridor. From inside, I heard voices. Not Sam's voice alone, but the distinct, low, rhythmic cadence of Evelyn. "The Packers will be here at 9 sharp on Thursday morning, Sam," Evelyn was saying. Her voice carried that pristine, aristocratic clarity that always made me feel small. While she's out taking the babies to her mother's house for the day, you will load your personal belongings. The international transfer forms for the London office are already signed. I spoke with the regional director myself. You start on Monday. I froze in the doorway, my hands gripping the foam handles of the stroller so tightly my knuckles turned a ghostly white. Inside their blanket wraps, Leo and Maya were fast asleep, completely oblivious to the ceiling falling in on their world. Mom, I don't know. Sam's voice emerged, hollow and broken. He sounded like a child trying to negotiate a punishment. Kim, she doesn't deserve this. The babies. How am I supposed to just leave them? They're my blood. They are an anchor. Sam, Evelyn snapped, her tone losing its soft edge for a fraction of a second, revealing the iron underneath. She trapped you with that pregnancy. A girl from a broken home, living paycheck to paycheck on an internet boutique? She is dragging you down into a life of mediocrity. In London, with your uncle's firm, you will be making 3 times your current salary within a year. You can send her an allowance for the children. A court will determine a reasonable child support fee, and you will be free to build a life that actually matches your potential. There was a heavy, suffocating silence from the kitchen. I waited, holding my breath, praying with every fiber of my being for my husband, the man who had wept with joy when our children were born, to say no, to tell her to get out of our home. She's going to hate me, Sam whispered. It was the whisper of a coward accepting his fate. She'll never forgive me. She will survive, Evelyn said coldly, and you will thank me in 5 years. I didn't storm inside. I didn't let them hear me cry. A strange, icy calm washed over my chest, the kind of absolute stillness that comes right before a massive storm. I quietly backed the stroller away from the door, wheeled my children down the hallway, and took the elevator back down to the lobby. I sat on a concrete bench outside in the freezing November wind for 2 hours, watching the autumn leaves scrape across the pavement, until I saw Evelyn's silver luxury sedan pull away from the curb. When I went back upstairs, Sam was sitting on the sofa, staring at the blank television screen. He looked up, trying to force a warm smile onto his face, but it died before it reached his eyes. Hey, he said, you're back late. The traffic was bad, I said smoothly, taking the babies out of their stroller. My voice didn't tremble. My hands were perfectly steady. Sam, could you do me a favor? On Thursday morning, my mother needs help moving some heavy furniture at her place. I was thinking of taking the twins over there early, around 8, and staying the whole day so she can see them. Would you mind? A flash of profound, ugly relief washed over his face. He nodded quickly, almost too eagerly. Of course, Kim. That's a great idea. Take your time. Don't rush back. I have a long day at the office anyway. Perfect? I whispered, turning my back to him so he couldn't see the tears that were finally burning the edges of my eyes. That works out perfectly for everyone. The next 3 days were a masterclass in survival. I didn't confront him because I knew that if I did, Evelyn would simply expedite the plan, and Sam would run to her protection. Instead, I contacted a local investigative journalist named Sarah, who ran a highly successful human interest broadcast segment on our local television network titled Broken Trust. It was a show that exposed local injustices, deadbeat corporate scams, and severe familial abandonments, giving a voice to those who had been silenced. I didn't want a quiet divorce in a hidden room. I wanted the world to see what Evelyn Vance had built and what Sam Vance had agreed to destroy. On Thursday morning at 7:30, I packed 2 heavy suitcases into my small car along with the twins. Sam kissed me on the cheek at the door. His lips were ice cold. I love you, Kim, he said. It was the biggest lie he had ever told. Goodbye, Sam, I replied. I didn't say see you tonight. I just looked at his face one last time, memorizing the features of the man I was leaving behind in the ashes of our marriage. By 9 o'clock, I wasn't at my mother's house. I was sitting in a brightly lit television studio, 30 miles away, microphones being clipped to my collar, while Sarah's production team prepared to run a live, special investigative segment on the rising crisis of domestic financial abandonment and the emotional wreckage left behind by secret marital desertion. As the producer counted down from 5, I looked directly into the black void of the camera lens. I knew that at 9:30, during his scheduled packing break, Sam would be sitting in our living room, perhaps turning on the morning news for background noise while he loaded his clothes into Evelyn's cardboard boxes. "Good morning," the host began, her voice echoing through the studio. "Today, we are bringing you a live, exclusive look into a story of absolute betrayal happening right here in our community. Sitting across from me is Kim Vance, a 28-year-old mother of 7-month-old twins. The studio lights were blinding, casting sharp, clinical white beams across the floorboards. For the first few seconds, the roar of my own heartbeat was the loudest sound in the room. But as I looked down at Leo and Maya, who were resting quietly in their stroller just past the glare of the production monitors, the fear evaporated. It was replaced by a cold, unyielding resolve. "Kim," the host, Sarah, said, her voice dropping into a tone of quiet gravity that carried across the airwaves. "You are here today because your life is being altered in a way that most people cannot even begin to comprehend. Tell our viewers what is happening at your apartment at this very moment." I leaned slightly toward the microphone. I didn't cry. I didn't let my voice break. I spoke with the quiet dignity of a woman who had already survived the worst part of the execution. "Right now," I said, looking straight into the center of the camera lens, "my husband, Sam Vance, is standing in our living room. He believes I am at my mother's house. He is currently packing his clothes into cardboard boxes provided by his mother, Evelyn. In exactly 4 hours, he is scheduled to board a first-class, one-way flight to London to start a new life, leaving behind a 28-year-old wife and 2 7-month-old babies with an empty apartment, a handful of bills, and no explanation." The studio was dead silent. Sarah leaned forward, a look of genuine, profound shock on her face. "A one-way ticket? And he didn't tell you himself?" "No," I replied, my voice echoing through the studio monitors. "He didn't have the courage. He thought he could slip away like a ghost in the morning fog. His mother convinced him that our children were an anchor dragging him down into mediocrity. She paid for the ticket. She arranged the job transfer. They planned to leave us with nothing, reducing a marriage and the lives of 2 innocent children to an affordable monthly allowance check sent from across the ocean." I paused, letting the weight of the words hang in the air. I knew how the broadcast schedule worked. This was a live local segment that syndicated across 3 neighboring counties, including the corporate park where Evelyn's family business operated, and the very neighborhood where our apartment sat. "Sam," I said, addressing the camera directly, speaking to the man I knew was watching that very screen in our half-empty living room. "If you are watching this, look at your children. Look at Leo. Look at Maya. They are not anchors. They are your blood, and they are my life. You didn't just break a promise to me. You abandoned your post as a father. Your mother told you that this would make you a success. But a man who runs away from his own babies in the dark isn't a success, Sam. He is a coward. You can take your flight to London. You can take the job. But you will never, as long as you live, erase the fact that the entire world now knows exactly who you are." The segment ran for 15 minutes. We showed the high-end travel itinerary with Evelyn's name stamped at the bottom. We showed the text messages Sam had sent me just hours prior, pretending everything was normal. By the time the red recording light on the camera finally went dark, my phone was vibrating so hard it nearly slid off the studio table. It was Sam. I didn't answer. I let it ring. Then came a barrage of text messages, each one more frantic than the last. "Kim, please answer me. What did you do? My phone is blowing up. The neighbors are outside the apartment. Mom's car is surrounded by people. Please, Kim, let's talk privately." A few minutes later, a text from an unknown number arrived. It was Evelyn. Her characteristic poise was entirely gone, replaced by a raw, unadulterated panic. "You have ruined our family name. The corporate office has already called me about the broadcast. Delete this instantly or I will ensure you get nothing in the divorce." I looked at the message, smiled a small, tired smile, and blocked both of their numbers. The truth was out, and once the truth is spoken aloud in the light of day, you can never shove it back into the dark. The public fallout was swift and absolute. The segment went viral on local social media channels within hours. Evelyn's boutique consultancy firm faced an immediate backlash, with several prominent local clients releasing public statements terminating their contracts to distance themselves from the family scandal. Sam never boarded that flight to London. The logistics firm he worked for, facing immense public scrutiny and internal pressure, quietly requested his resignation 3 days later. He moved back into his mother's guest house, a grown man stripped of his job, his reputation, and the family he had taken for granted. 6 months have passed since that cold November morning. The apartment that once smelled of vanilla and betrayal is gone. I used the remainder of our savings and the sudden surge of support from my online boutique, which tripled its sales after the community rallied behind us, to lease a small, sunlit house with a small garden in the back. The divorce was finalized last month. It wasn't quiet and it wasn't easy, but because of the undeniable public record of his attempted desertion, the court granted me full physical custody of the twins, along with a heavily enforced child support structure that Evelyn cannot legally manipulate. Every evening now, I sit on my new porch, holding a warm cup of chamomile tea. The streetlights still hum to life, just like they used to, but the air feels different now. Feels clean. Feels safe. Leo and Maya are crawling now, their loud, chaotic laughter filling the hallways of our new home. Sometimes, I look at their little faces and I see glimpses of the man I used to love, but the pain doesn't stay long. I chose to expose the betrayal not out of vengeance, but out of a deep, unshakable necessity to protect my children from a life built on a foundation of lies. We survived the winter, and for the first time in a very long time, I am looking forward to the spring. Thank you for sitting with me through this story today. It takes a lot of strength to look at the people we love and admit that they aren't who we thought they were. But sometimes, losing a false kingdom is the only way to find your true home. I want to ask you a question, from my heart to yours. Have you ever had to expose a painful truth to protect the people you love, even when it meant breaking your own heart? Let me know in the comments below. Your stories of strength help all of us heal. If this story reminded you of the power of truth, please take a moment to subscribe to Broken Trust Stories and share this video with someone who might need to find their own courage today. Until next time, take care of yourselves and remember, your peace is worth protecting.